Looking at tweens and starting off with the shape tween, then doing motion, and then going into classic tweens, which are the three tweens in Animate Flash or Flash Animate. So here's my timeline. In the first frame, I'm going to draw a shape using the tools. I'll draw a rectangular shape. I don't really want a outline. So coming down to the 30th frame, I'm going to do insert keyframe. Now I go to my selection tool and move this across the stage. So I have one here and one here. The next thing to do will be going and right-clicking on the number one frame and doing create shape tween. So now you see you have this, and when you scrub the playhead, you see it moves. I'm going to create another document by going to File, New, then ActionScript 3.0. I'm using these default settings. And I'm going to boost that up to 200. And look at the morphing features in Adobe Animate. So I'm going to draw a rectangle again in frame 1. Then in frame 30, I'm going to insert a blank keyframe. This animation will morph from this shape into another shape. So here I'll go to a circle. And I have my two frames. So now you see how it morphs from a rectangle to a circle. This can be handy. You can also morph text. What I've done here is add another layer to put text in, and I put a lock on this layer. Basically, it's a good idea to do that when you're working with multiple layers, because somehow you might get two layers confused, so it's just a way of avoiding problems or issues. First, I'm going to type a letter G. The thing about text, working with text, use the Move tool, which is shortcut is V. The thing about text in Animate Flash or Flash Animate is that it's looked at not as an object. So it's a little bit similar to Photoshop, where you have to rasterize text in order to manipulate it. In Flash Animate, what you do is you come up to Modify and you go to Break Apart. So you notice what it looks like now. And when it breaks it apart, what it's doing, it's changing it into an object. So again, I come to the last frame and I do insert blank keyframe again, because it's going to morph into something different. And I'm going to pull a oval without an outline. At this end. And go to Create Shape Tween. You can see how it's already starting to morph. So that might come in handy. Again, when you're using a shape tween, what you're using is an object you've created in Animate Flash, and you're not using a symbol. That's one of the rules. One of the rules that give it a distinction. One feature with Flash is that you have the ability to change the speeds just by grabbing a keyframe and pulling it over. So you see what you have there. Hitting enter on your keyboard and the animation runs. Next, I'm going to look at easing, and before I do that, I'm going to change the timeline a little bit by pulling this out to frame 50, and the other one disappears. So I'll pull that out to 50. So I'm going to select the bottom layer. I took the lock off and select the first frame and go over to ease and look at the options to manipulate the speed. When I click this, there's a lot of different options you can use here. Ease out, ease in out, or even draw your own. There's also a slider, which you can do, and we'll see how that works. Either as a -100 or up to a -100, or either up to a +100. Hitting the enter, you see how the change in speed was on the it's square going to a circle. Now going into Motion Tweens, I'm going to create a new document. ActionScript 3.0. Make the screen a little bit bigger. A motion tween doesn't work with shapes like a shape tween works with shapes. The first thing I'm going to do is create a symbol. So I'll use a polygon. Use the select tool, which is V. Select it. Go up to modify, convert the symbol. When you're creating a symbol, it can be a grouped object as well as just one object like this. So you can give it a name. The blue lines going around indicate that it's a symbol. Now, the difference of a motion tween is you'll be going to frame 1 and doing create motion tween. You see shape tween isn't even accessible because this isn't a shape. And it automatically populates all the keyframes for you, but you could change that if you want to. Now what you do for the last frame, now you see what you have here is a motion path. I don't know if you can see that good. I think you can. And one of the things about this path, first we'll look at the actual animation. So one of the things about this path now is that you have the ability to move the path. I also have some of these other options as far as rotation or direction, which way it's going to rotate, clockwise, counterclockwise. And you also have the easing, which we had from the shape tween. And you have orient to path. How orient to path would be beneficial is if you had maybe like a car and you wanted it to follow like it was going, the path like it was going over a hill. That's how orient to path would work once it's checked. You also have the option of using something like the free transform tool here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size by clicking on the actual object using the free transform tool. It goes back to the original size. So going into look at the classic tweens, I'm going to create another new document, keeping the default measurements. Classic tween used to be a motion tween back in the day until some updates were given to the motion tween. So for the classic tween, the first thing we're going to do is create a symbol. And I'm just going to use a shape, a rectangle. V is the shortcut for the selection tool. Select it. Go to modify. Convert the symbol. I'm going to create a graphic symbol. Now the difference here is you'll be putting in a keyframe. So I'm going to go to frame 30 and insert a keyframe. From Insert, Keyframe. So this is very similar to a shape tween in the way it's constructed, and different from a motion tween. You have a few options by selecting that. If I want to change the color, or even alpha, which would change the transparency. And again, I could go to the transform and make that a bigger object. Come back to frame 1 and do create classic tween. So now you see you have the color changes in a real lot, but you can see it. And it's morphed. You have a lot of the same features as far as the easing and everything. There's another feature in Classic Tweens which will make it more versatile. And you get this by going to the layer and right-clicking on it and create Add Classic Motion Guide. So now you see this is it basically looks like a parent to a child relationship. What the guide layer will do is manipulate the path of the object. I'm going to use the pencil tool to create a path. And it's best not to overlap these, just so you don't end up having problems. You see the object snapped right to the beginning of the line. But it doesn't snap to the end. So what you do is you grab it, there it goes. If you can see, when you select the object, there's the little anchor point is what you're connecting to the lines. And again, you have a lot of the same options that you had in some of the other tweens, like this window. Custom again, where you could draw your own line, or easing. You see the change in speed. Go to a plus 100. So it's slowed down near the end. That could come in handy in some instances, easing in or easing out, like a brace or like a car coming to a stop or something like that. So one more thing about a classic tween is that if you were to pull a circle, say you were to pull an outline, you can use that as a path, but there has to be a beginning and an end. So you'd have to delete a little tiny portion of the circle so you had a beginning and the end. So hope that helps. Thanks. Bye.